So there were directives that were given at the closed meeting we attended. Are there any announcements, by the way, to be made? Yes, Mr. Lalonde. Yes, again, on the 24th of August, there'll be a meeting of all residents of Ward 4 at the Jean-Marc Lalonde Arena. That's at 7:15 p.m. And on the 25th of August, there's going to be the Centraid tournament that's going to be held in Hawkesbury, the Prescott Russell Centraid tournament. I'd like to make another announcement. Well, it's more of a warning than an announcement. Today we received a call from someone representing himself as someone from Revenue Canada, saying that we owed $5,000 and that we did not fill out our income tax forms properly. And they told me that if we did not send a $5,000 check, and they would send the police officers over at our place within the next 2 hours. Usually, Revenue Canada works this way. They'll send you an invoice, and these folks that solicited us by phone said, well, we're going to send the police officers within the next 2 hours, and if we did not pay up. Deloitte Touche that I contacted said that I was the victim or the prey of someone who's asking to money from you for illegal purposes, and to send this money to a P.O. box. My intent is to warn police officers tomorrow morning and to appear at on radio to warn people. It's a phone call that stems from the province of Alberta. If you note that you have a phone call, an incoming phone call from the province of Alberta, don't worry. Deloitte Touche, the accounting firm, told me that this is a scam, a phone scam. So please beware. Let's go on now to the question period. If you have any questions, please step up to the mic and ask any questions you might have of Town Council. Now's the time. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. My name is Stéphane Lalonde, 1066 Landry Street. I'd like to determine whether or not you'll be addressing the MDS issue. Well, it's on tonight's agenda, but I believe we'll be addressing this issue at the Committee of the Whole. This meeting will be held subsequent to this one, subsequent to it. Can we ask questions during the time in which you'll be debating that issue at the Committee of the Whole? Well, no, not during that time. I thought that we could address that issue. Well, you can address that issue at the question period set aside for the Committee of the Whole meeting, which is going to be held immediately after this one, the regular meeting of Council. Well, that's fine. You can ask questions then. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fine. Thank you then. Good evening. Gilles La Victoire, 1675 Saint-Laurent. Congratulations for the great work you're doing on St. Joseph Street, by the way, Mr. Mayor. It's really fantastic. And I was told, I heard that for you to repair Saint Laurent Street, that is in very poor shape. I believe that the last time work was performed on this road was in 72 or 1973. The Spino Company was the one performing work at that time. Well, before you go any further, sir, this has been added on to the agenda for discussion purposes after question period is ended tonight, should I say. All right, well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. My name is Richard Chatelain, 864 St. Joseph Street in Rockland. I'd like to ask for a retaining wall to be built along a slope, a very, very steep slope that was built along my property. I believe that Mr. Chatelain had approached me, Mr. Mayor. Do you understand English? I'll switch to English for Mr. Darch's purpose. Mr. Chatelain gave me a phone call or phoned me up, and I believe that I asked Mr. Campo to have a discussion with him. He's saying that the grade between the new sidewalk, and his property will naturally have water seep into his property because of the height difference, and that's why he's here tonight, Mr. Darch. Well, I had not heard that from Mr. Campo yet, I believe. No. Well, I believe there is a retaining wall, to avoid the water seeping onto his property. Well, certainly his property is lower than the road. I'll have to take a look at Mr. Campo's situation. We'll have to take a look as to how his property stood before as opposed to after the work was performed. We have to perform further work that might exacerbate the situation. Well, the grade slopes 3 to 4 feet even steeper than it was before. All right, so we'll visit you at your address there. I'm at 864 Campo Street. Well, that's fine. Any other questions then? Well, that's fine. Thank you then, folks. Thank you. So let's go on with the agenda. 9.1, whereas Saint Laurent street paving has been last dated in 1972 and the emergency repair left a considerable part of Saint Laurent Street in very poor shape, and whereas the infrastructure department estimated the cost of covering Saint Laurent at $15,000, be it authorized that council mandate STP Construction to put a scratch cone, to install a scratch coat layer, and be it also resolved that we mandate administration to come up with the necessary financing means to recoup the costs of work estimated at $15,000. Seconded by Mrs. Simard. Questions? I don't know if Mr. Darch wants to comment on this. Well, let me play devil's advocate here. Let's not forget that Saint-Joseph, well, we're going to have a surplus of approximately $30,000 added on to the invoice because of work to be performed between Avenue du Parc and Des Lauriers that has been delayed. An invoice will be receiving from an additional invoicing to be received from the contractor and the engineer involved. We have to come up with surplus money. We have no money left in the budget right now for road work. I'm just saying that it's going to cost $30,000. We don't have much money left. I sent it over to you for whatever arguments you have for it. Yeah, this was brought to our attention, and to address Saint Laurent as part of the contract involved, and I've had discussions with the project manager. We're guesstimating right now. We had a contingency on this right now. I think it's about $10,000 remaining, and that doesn't include the potential for regulating the situation once it's controlled. We'll be bringing a report back to council with regards to the status of this situation. I mean, certainly I took a look at the road. It's not in good shape. There are patches on it. There was a lot of breakage along that road earlier on in this year. It's lower cut. You'll be able to see this when we tackle the draft. We're looking at a threshold of approximately 35, and this one is less than that. It's certainly within the, I guess all we can do is that if council wishes to include this, we can find a funding source. We've had discussions as to coming up with additional funding sources today. I guess that this is what we have to ponder is this something that members of council wants us to tackle? Or is that what members of council want us to tackle? Well, we took a look at the situation between Saint Jacques and Campo. There are other streets that need work. Well, the only reason I'm bringing this up is that machinery is there. We did that in the previous occasions where machinery was on Marcel. Can I continue on, Mr. Mayor? I know that Marcel is involving scratch coat also. The only reason that I'm asking this for Saint Laurent is that this road is in really bad shape and we need to perform with a repair. STP is right there. They're doing the job right now, and it only makes sense, you know, to perform a repair right now. It's going to be good for a number of years. Yes, it does cost 15 now, but maybe in 5 years, maybe it's going to cost 30 to redo it. I'm proposing this only so that we can be cost efficient. I'd like to say that we had extra money for Marcel when they came and asked for it. This is finishing 1 kilometer. That would save having graders and everything else there and closing up the circuit involved. Right now we're coming back. If there's extra money, I'm fine with that. I have no problems in doing that street if we have extra money. There are also other streets we have to look at. But I have a hard time that we can come up with $15,000 in our budget. Well, if everybody says that we all need $15,000, we'll be up to $150,000 at the... well, Mr. Mayor, as Mr. Darch stated, there was a contingency of approximately $10,000 that he was alluding to, and that remains, and we're still short of $5,000. I think that we can come up with $5,000 somewhere. I said that if we can come up with the additional money, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll do it next year, but it's going to cost us a bit more. Well, if we can have a scratch code provision next year, many streets will be looked after next year. Mr. Darch, do you have an operating grader in that area? Do you know that we can... Well, how about asking the department to look into that if they have the money, or just looking into finding the money, and if they do have extra money, just come back and do it. Mrs. Collier, well, we're going to need an answer tonight because they're at the end of the road right now, Mr. Mayor, with regard to work. Well, I know that we have a surplus of, with regard to the tax stabilization funds, over $1 million in there. Well, I know that we have options of funds left by year end. The backup funding would stem from the tax stabilization fund, but you'd have 3 parts involved in this. First, the project itself. If there's surplus funding, it would go there first. Second, the operating budget, and then stabilization budget that we could tap into, Mr. Berlinguet. The $15,000, Mr. Darch, would involve what? Well, firstly, Mr. Campo, well, our folks were approached with the potential cost. We're talking about 100 and some odd meter stretch of road. It's not a lengthy road. It's not in great condition. We feel comfortable. As we've just indicated here, the contractor is paving as we speak. And we are just in the process right now, and I think that what Ms. Collier has suggested is the right sort of pecking order. I don't think there's money within the contract. We are not quite there with our assessment of the operating budget versus as to what's been approved and actuals. That's the process we're in, and now within the budgetary process we're involved in, and the last would be the mill rate stabilization fund we could tap into. Firstly, I think the council has to decide whether we get involved with this project. If you say yes, we want to get ahead with it, then staff will look at that pecking order to determine where we can come up with funds. But allowance could be made for extra work. Well, they gave us 150 tons at $93 a ton of scratch coat installed. which is as good, I think, as the price we get from the counties, really. So, but I think that what Richard did was that, well, we approached the contractor with the length and width of the street, and they applied their unit price. It came up to $15,000. Well, it was, you see, they're already there. It would be silly for us not to take advantage of this, especially if they're in the process of doing work as things stand right now. So all in favor? Fine, great. So we'll take care of it then. Approved. Thank you. Let's go on now to consent items. I know that we'll be withdrawing 10.1 sub E from the list of consent items. A question for Mr. Darch with regards to 10.1 sub A also. So we'll also withdraw sub A, as well as I'd like to withdraw item 10.4 for blanket improvement, as well as 11.1 accounts paid. So A, 10.1 sub A and sub E, as well as 11.1. Go ahead, Councillor Levert. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's be it resolved that the following consent items identified under consent items during the course of the regular meeting of August the 21st be adopted. 10.1 sub B, garage improvements strategy. C, residential and non-residential growth forecast. D, 2018 budget timetable. 10.2, proclamation of September 2017 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. 10.3, resignation of a member of the Cultural Advisory Committee. 10.5, resolution to authorize an extension to Councillor Diane Joignard's leave of absence. Seconded by Councillor Berlinguet. All those in favor? Carried, and thank you. Councillor André Lalonde, could you please read 10.1 sub A? Continuance of asphalt on Marcel's Road from Lavigne to the cul-de-sac. Mr. Darch, could you please confirm that asphalt does not involve everything involved here? That's on certain streets only. That's right. It's just a question of terminology here. Seconded then by Councillor Grimard. All those in favor? Let's go on now to 10.1 sub E. Be it resolved, the city commission a traffic flow study to determine the traffic flow on this road, and that Space Builders modify to shorten the length of the roadways involved, and that the setback be cut back to 26 meters. I guess that what I'd like to get to is that we have a resolution and we were told something else. It states that be it resolved that Council approves the location of the proposed east-west collector as per AECOM's recommendation. And I believe that last time we got together was that we decided we would not deem it as being a collector. So just for purposes of clarity, it also states in the report, it may be resolved, be it resolved that Sterling Avenue be continued south of the collector. And I believe, and we all agreed at the Committee of the Whole, that we'd like Sterling to stop. But I don't see those here. Which one will you go with? Should we add these on the resolution to make sure it's clear? It's just a clarifying question. Well, the decision that you'll be voting on tonight is what is written, what is contained in writing in your documents tonight. I just want things to be made very clear. This was the resolution as recommended by the Committee of the Whole. Not the resolution on the report, but the resolution that was set apart from the rest of the resolutions to be tackled tonight. It states that be it resolved that the City commission a traffic flow to determine the design and to come up with recommendations with regards to the number of access roadways, and be it resolved on this road, and that be it resolved that space builders reduce the number of lots and setbacks on this collector, and be it resolved that this collector be built with a setback of 26 meters. And let's set down also that Sterling stop at the collector. Well, my question is that maybe if we put this in, that the rest is cancelled. So that means that Sterling will not continue on. Is that what it means? Well, we'd have to add it into the resolution. I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page with regard to this issue here. I just want to make sure, because it's not clear yet. It remains unclear. Well, it's clear then that Sterling will... I just want to make sure that this is not an east-west collector, Mr. Mayor, that's all. This is a major residential street that runs east-west, so that's fine. So everyone's in favor? Fine. Let's go on now to item 10.4, salaries paid. Be resolved that salaries paid for the period from the 4th of June 2017 to the 29th of July 2017, the amount of $1,862,000.10 and a net amount of $1,327,626.12 be adopted as recommended. Seconded by Mr. Berlinguet. Your question, Councillor Lalonde? Could we be sent by email the amount of overtime that is included in this particular amount during those 2 months that are covered by this resolution? Well, each and every month we issue overtime report. Let's bear in mind that the report is fairly detailed, but we have a right to be sent this particular report by email, do we not? Certainly, and it shall be done. All those in favor then? Fine. By email in advance, yes. In advance of meetings, fine. Let's go on now to committee and staff reports. Accounts paid. Be it resolved for the accounts to be paid from the 10th of June to the 11th of August 2017 in the amount of $11,568,031.55 be adopted as recommended. Seconded by Councillor Simard. Questions? Mr. Mayor, we've already had a meeting in the past concerning the credit cards that are issued by us to our staff. How many credit cards are circulating amongst staff members? When I look at the United Counties practice, they have one credit card issued. I've noticed that we made use of 11 different credit cards during a 1 month for an amount of $51,256,000. Well, I can get back to you with regard to the number of cards that we make use of, but each department head, though, Councillor, has a card, and individual managers also make use of cards issued to them, but I can come up with the exact number of cards issued as well as those that are card holders. Ms. Collier, there are a lot of credit card charges for July and August resulted from, amounts spent during the flooding because of the floods. That's right. It's because of additional expenditures that were incurred during the flood. So each and every expenditure is detailed, I must say. Mr. Boucher, you had also extra expenditures that were incurred during the course of the festival-related activities that were held this year. That's right. That's fine. I had another question, Mr. Mayor. There's also an amount of $568,433. The $568,000 paid to the Receiver General, is that for a 3-month period? Well, there are 5 pay periods, Councillor, but this deals with a 2-month period. It's a timing issue, but there are 5 pay periods involved in this. This is a source deduction, really, that is sent off to, this amount is sent off to Revenue Canada. Any other questions, Councillor Lalonde? Let me see here. Regards to accounts paid. Oh, yes. The budget-based contractor, $144,000. Is that for the greater 144,530? Page 54 to be more precise. Entreprise Budget Incorporated. Well, no, that's the Budget Control Enterprise was hired to perform dust control. Yeah, that was to perform a dust control, to apply dust control measures on gravel roadways. I also had questions. There were many invoices involving restaurants or restaurant-related expenditures that were incurred during the flood. I imagine these claims were all honored. They were all paid out. Yes, yes. There were a few that related to meetings or interviews. There were some lunch invoices that broke the 100, that went over the $100 mark. If we're talking about an interview, normally this involves two individuals getting together, one asking questions, the other one answering questions. Well, those were expenditures. Well, you might look along with Mr. Desnoyers as to the extent of expenditures. If we're dealing with $100 expenditures for lunch, well, you might really not go all that far with $100 lunches. Sometimes, if you want to accomplish things, given the number of people gathered around the lunch table, $100 won't get you much. Let's go back now to bylaws. Are there any bylaws you'd like to withdraw from the list of regular items? No? Very good then. Let's go on to bylaws. Councillor Guillemard. Well, you started the ball rolling, Mr. Mayor. I'll continue on with it. Be it resolved that the following bylaws be adopted. Item 12.1, Bylaw 2017-100, to modify the zoning bylaw 1277 Pilon Road. Bylaw 2017-102, to delegate the power of executing certain agreement for the operation of the daycare services to the Director of Community Services. And Bylaw 2017-103, to authorize the signature of a lease agreement for the Chalet de Service de Bourget, seconded by Councillor Guillemard. Thank you. Confirmatory bylaw. Be it resolved that bylaw 2017-103, being a confirmatory bylaw for the regular meeting of August 21st, be adopted. Seconded by Councillor Simard. All those in favor. So adjournment called at 7:52.